Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel The Story Girl. Today we are going to continue with the short story written by William Faulkner, Dry September Part 2. She was 38 or 39. She lived in a small frame house with her invalid mother and a thin, shallow, unflagging aunt, where each morning between 10 and 11 she would appear on the porch in a lace trimmed boudoir cap, to sit swinging in the porch, swinging until noon. After dinner, she lay down for a while until the afternoon began to cool. Then, in one of the three or four new voile dresses which she had each summer, she would go downtown to spend the afternoon in the stores with their other ladies, where they would handle the goods and haggle over the prices in cold, immediate voices without any intention of buying. She was of comfortable people, not the best in Jefferson, but good people enough, and she was still on the slender side of ordinary looking, with a bright, faintly haggard man and dress. When she was young, she had a slender, nervous body and a sort of hard vivacity which had enabled her for a time to ride upon the crest of the town's social life as exemplified by the high school party and church social period of her contemporaries while still children enough to be unclass conscious. She was the last to realize that she was losing ground, that those among whom she had been a little brighter and louder flame than any other were beginning to learn the pleasure of snobbery male and relation female. That was when her face began to wear the bright, haggard look she still carried it, to parties on shadowy porches and the summer lawns like a mask or a flag, with that bafflement of furious repudiation of truth in her eyes. One evening at a party, she heard a boy and two girls, all schoolmates, talking. She never accepted another invitation. She watched the girls with whom she had grown up as they married and got homes and children. But no man ever called on her steadily until the children of the other girls had been calling her auntie for several years. The while their mothers told them in bright voices about how popular Aunt Minnie had been as a girl. Then the town began to see her driving on Sunday afternoons with the cashier in the bank. He was a widower of about 40, a high colored man, smelling always faintly, and of the barber shop or of the whiskey. He owned the first automobile in town, a red runabout. Minnie had the first motoring bonnet and veil the town oversaw. Then the town began to say, "Poor Minnie, but she is old enough to take care of herself," others said. That was when she began to ask her old schoolmates that their children call her cousin instead of auntie. It was 12 years now since she had been regaled into adultery by public opinion, and 8 years since the cashier had gone to a multiplex bank, returning for one day each Christmas, which he spent at annual bachelor's party, at a hunting club, or on the river. From behind their curtains, the neighbors would see the party pass, and during the over the way Christmas Day visiting, they would tell her about him, about how well he looked, and how they heard that he was prospering in the city, watching with bright secret eyes her haggard bright face. Usually by that hour there would be the scent of whiskey on her breath. It was supplied by a youth, a clerk at the soda fountain. "Sure, I buy it for the old girl. I reckon she is entitled to a little fun." Her mother kept to her room altogether now. The gaunt aunt ran the house. Against that background, Minnie's bright dresses, her idle and empty days, had a quality of furious unreality. She went out in the evenings only with women, a quality of neighbors, and to the moving pictures. Each afternoon she dressed in one of the new dresses and went downtown alone. where her young cousins were there already strolling in the late afternoons with their delicate silken heads and thin awkward arms and conscious hips, clinging to one another or shrieking and gaggling with the paired boys in the soda fountain when she passed and went on along the serried store fronts, in the doors of which the sitting and longing men did not even follow her with their eyes anymore. This was the ending of part 2. Now we are going to start the part 3 of Dry September. The barber went swiftly up the street where the suppressed lights. Insects swirled, glared, and rigged and violent suspicion in the lifeless air. The day had died in a pall of dust above the darkened square, surrounded by the spent dust. The sky was as clear as the inside of a brass bell. Below the cast was a rumor of the twice waxed moon. When he overlooked them, McClendon and three others were getting into a car, parked in an alley. McClendon stooped his thick head, peering out beneath the top. Changed your mind, did you? He said. Damn good thing. By God, tomorrow, when this town hears about how you talked tonight. Now, the other ex soldier said. Hawkshaw's all right. Come on, Hawk, jump in. Wilmer's never done it, boys, the barber said. If anybody done it, why, you all know well as I do there ain't any town where they got better niggers than us. And you know how a lady will kind of think things about men when there ain't no reason. And Miss Minnie anyway. Sure, the soldier said. We are just going to talk to him a little. That's it. Talk? Hell, Bud said. When were though with the. Shut up, for God's sake, the soldier said. Do you want everybody in town? Tell them, by God, McClendon said. Tell every one of the sons that they will let a white woman. Let's go. Here is the another car. The second car slides quaking out of a cloud of dust and the oily mouth. McClendon started his car and took the lead. Dust lay like a fog in the street. The street lights hung nimbushed and in air. They drove on out of town. A rooted lane turned at right angles. Dust hung above it too, and above all the land, the dark bulk of the ice plant, where the negro mace was night watchman, rose against the sky. Better stop here, hadn't we? The soldier said. McClendon did not reply. He hurled the car up and slammed to a shop, and the headlights glaring on the blank wall. Listen here, boys, the barber said. If he is here, don't that prove that he never done it? Done it? If it was him, he would run. Don't you see he would? The second car came up and stopped. McClendon got down. Butch sprang down beside him. Listen, boys, the barber said. Cut the lights off, McClendon said. The breathless dark rushed down. There was no sound in it save their lungs as they sought air in the parched dust in which for 2 months they had lived. Then the diminishing crunch of McClendon's and Butch's feet, and a moment later McClendon's voice. Will! Below the cast, the wan hammonage of the moon increased. It heaved above the ridge, silvering the air, the dust, so that they seemed to breathe, live in a bowl of molten lead. There was no sound of night bird, nor insect, no sound save their breathing and a faint tickling of contracting metal about the cars. Where their bodies touched one another, they seemed to sweat dryly, for no more moisture came. Christ, a voice said, let's get out of here. But they did move until vague noises began to grow out of the darkness ahead. Then they got out and waited tensely in the breathless dark. There was another sound, a blow, a hissing expulsion of breath, and McClendon crushing in stumbling clump. As though they were feeling something. Kill him, kill the son, a voice whispered. McClendon flung them back. Not here, he said. Get him into the car. Kill him. Kill the black son. The voice murmured. They dragged the Negro into the car. The barber had waited beside the car. He could feel himself sweating, and he knew he was going to be sick at that stomach. What is, Captain? The Negro said. I ain't done nothing, for God. Mr. John, someone produced handcuffs. They worked busily about the Negro as though he were a post, quite intent getting in one another's way. He submitted to the handcuffs, looking swiftly and constantly from dim face to dim face. Who is here, captains? He said, leaning to peer into the faces until they could feel his breath and smell his sweaty streak. He spoke a name or two. What you all say I done, Mr. John? McClendon jerked the car door open. Get in, he said. The Negro did not move. What you all doing to do with me, Mr. John? I ain't done nothing. White folks, captains, I ain't done nothing. I swear for God. He called another name. Get in. McClendon said. He struck the Negro. The others expelled their breath in a dry beating and struck them with random blows, and he wailed and cursed them, and swept his manacled hands across their faces and slashed the barber upon the mouth. And the barber struck him also. Get him in there, McClendon said. They pushed at him. He ceased struggling and got in and sat quietly as the others took their places. He sat between the barber and the soldier, drawing his limbs in and so as not to touch them. His eyes going swiftly and constantly from face to face. Butch clung to the running board. The car moved on. The barber nursed his mouth with his handkerchief. What is the matter, Hawk? The soldier said. Nothing, the barber said. They regained the high road and turned away from town. The second car dropped back out of the dust. They went on gaining speed. The final fringe of the houses dropped behind. God damn, he stinks, the soldier said. We will fix that, the drummer informed beside McClendon said. On the running board, Butch cursed into the hot rush of the air. The barber leaned suddenly forward and touched McClendon's arm. Let me out, John, he said. Jump out, nigger lover, McClendon said without turning his head. He drove swiftly behind them. The sourceless light of the second car glared in the dust. Presently, McClendon turned into a narrow road. It was rooted with tissue. It led back to an abandoned brick kiln, a series of reddish mountains, and weed and vine-choked vats without bottom. It had been used for pasture once, until one day the owner missed one of his mules. Although he prodded carefully in the vats with a long pole, he could not even find the bottom of them. John, the barber said. Jump out then, McClendon said, hurling the car along the roots. Beside the barber, the Negro spoke. Mr. Henry, the barber sat forward. The narrow tunnel of the road rushed up and past. Their motion was like an extinct furnace blast, cooler but utterly dead. The car bounded from run to rut. Mr. Henry, the Negro said. The barber began to fuck furiously at the door. Look out there, the soldier said. But the barber had already kicked the door open and swung onto the running board. The soldier leaned across the Negro and grasped at him, but he had already jumped. The car went on without checking the speed. The impetus hurled him crashing through the dust-sweating weeds into the ditch. Dust puffed about him, and in a thin, vicious crackling of sapes stems, he lay choking and writhing until the second car passed and died away. Then then he rose and limped on until he reached the high road and turned towards the town, brushing at his clothes with his hands. The moon was higher, riding high and clear of the dust at last, and after a while the town began to glare beneath the dust. He went on limping. Presently he heard cars, and the glow of them grew in the dust behind him, and he left the road and crouched again and in the weeds until they passed. McClendon's car came last now. There were 4 people in it, and the butch was not on the running board. They went on, the dust swallowed them, and the glare of the sound died away. The dust of them hung for a while, but soon the eternal dust absorbed it in again. The barber climbed back onto the road and limped on towards the town.